let's see. Mage. Theocracy. World of Darkness. This video by Primogen. Oh, hello. The Theocracy. Lore video.
Guidance, dominance, vision, oppression, expulsion.
Yep,
In
that's
the
something.
political conflict that is the Ascension War, the Technocratic Union has consistently been painted up as an oppressive, authoritarian, and domineering organization.
That's what they are.
Intolerant to any divergence of their view on reality, and stamping out whatever opposition from the so-called mages that they can find. They are the Illuminati, the New World Order, the Shadow Rulers who guide humanity towards a single future with an iron fist in a velvet glove. They are the bulwark against the nightly horrors, the guardians of the common people, the trailblazers and pioneers who willingly risk and even sacrifice their lives so that humanity may prosper. Rogue mages wielding their power with abandon, crazed marauders, nihilistic nefandi, vampires and werewolves. These are all very real threats to humanity, who can only be kept in check by the brave soldiers of the Union. With a unifying vision and a belief in the enlightened anthropic principle that reality can only be maintained by the conviction and strength of the will of humanity itself, the technocrats represent the best that our species has to offer.
Oh, really?
Conflicting views, of course. But which one is right? Ask any mage or technocrat and you will get a different answer. Like so many things in this world, the truth is far from a simple dichotomy. Indeed, it is not even a static thing. We humans want to believe that our reality is immutable, that what we do not yet understand will make sense with time, and thus in hindsight will likewise be explainable with what we today know. Yet, as you have learned by now, that is not how the world works. The Technocratic Union traces its roots back to Wolfgang von Reismann's vision, as well as the rise of the Order of Hermes. But it wasn't until 1325 that the Order of Reason, the Union's first form, became manifest.
Okay.
Ironic to any scholar of vampiric lore, the founding took place inside an ivory tower that once belonged to a hermetic mage whose assassination had left it bereft of owner. Delegates from all across the Eurasian continental area gathered together for nearly a month to discuss the order's forming, and 8 different conventions would eventually join together into this new structure. They were the Gabrielites, the High Guild, the Quaesian Circle, the Void Seekers, the Celestial Masters, the Craft Masons, the Artificers, and the Solificati, all ruled over by an inner circle. Some of these conventions had already banded together before this meeting, but this was the last step. The forming of the Order of Reason would spark the so-called Sorcerer's Crusade, a war that would rage through a large part of the Renaissance as magic was slowly but surely fading, as consensus and paradox would become ever increasingly influential in the forming of reality.
Yeah, paradox.
Initially, the Order's goal was noble and singular, the protection of humanity from the supernatural. But despite many of its members' best attempts, envy, greed, and pride would all take its tolls, as inner conflicts of interest and methodology would oftentimes mar their attempts.
And hunger for power, I suppose.
The 9 traditions gathered together out of necessity in order to fight the Order of Reason, whom they believed were a threat not only to other mages, but to reality itself. Several mages had sensed that magic was fading. It had in fact been since the previous millennia, and they suspected the Order of Reason and their enlightened science was one of the underlying causes. We don't know if this is true, but it certainly is a convenient casus belli for the more traditional mages to rally against.
Wage war.
The ecstatic Shazar, the Seer, formed what would eventually become the Council of Nine in 1440, together with Nightshade, a survivor of a murderous raid led by the Gabrielites on the pagan circle she belonged to, as well as Valoran the Messianic Singer and Master Baldric Lasai of the Order of Hermes. In the 1450s, this fledgling order created the Realm of Horizon, from which they would operate. A separate world the size of a small moon, with 2 continents with a wilderness resembling the bygone era before the arrival of these enlightened sciences. The Order of Reason, of course, did not remain inactive in this period, and they led many assaults against mystic strongholds, a mystic being another word for the mages who did not adhere to the idea of their sciences. Doazetep, a hermetic stronghold, suffered an extended siege from the Order, and they even attacked Horizon itself in 1475. This was a time of great war and conflict, and while the Circle of Nine were united under this strife, they were tested sorely. Ultimately, it would seem the Order won the war, for the mystics disappeared, the 9 traditions fading into the shadows, and would remain so for the next 300 years. In truth, they were rebuilding their strength, but while they were gone, science would claim complete and utter dominance over humanity. Yet as time went by, the once noble ideals of the Order of Reason became corrupt. The High Guild turned to slavery, conquest, and opiates as an easy means for money, supported by many other conventions who depended on the High Guild's might to support them. The craft masons, who more than any other convention stood up for the so-called unenlightened, were pushed to the side, seen as bygone relics and heirs of the hermetic ideals from which they had sprung. A great purge was done of all old artifacts and arts that could be considered too fantastical for the Order, and eventually their mindset would shift completely, denying that there had ever been something called magic to begin with. Fear, oppression, and murder would rule in the halls of the Order of Reason. A dark time of opposites. As humanity grew more enlightened, she would also develop new and crueler means to subjugate others. At the end of the 1600s, through exploitation and subjugation, the Order of Reason had laid claim to the entire world. Yet even within the Order, conflicts reigned, often out of national rivalries as well as religious ones. All the while, mystics were hunted down and persecuted. The fires of witch trials burned hotly for many years, orthodox intolerance towards witchcraft and black magic equally a driving force as the Union's will. Hermetic mages and choristers profited greatly from the slave trade and the formation of secret societies during this time, and a great rift arose between the traditions, as other mystics saw their people murdered or put in chains, while their so-called brethren in these orders did nothing to prevent it, or even personally profited from it. Indeed, the Circle of Nine, or 8 as they then were, would most likely have been able to put up a much stronger resistance, perhaps even beating the complacent and corrupt Order of Reason, had they not opposed each other. The aristocratic traditions hold much, if not all, the blame here, for they let their greed and personal success overshadow the ideals from which their group had been formed. It should come to no surprise that the Nefandi are, and have been, a constantly present threat within both the Order of Reason as well as the technocracy, as they often work to undermine the efforts of those within the organization who wish to do good. Even so, all evil deeds of the Union and Order cannot be blamed on these Nefandi. Humanity itself is quite capable of inflicting horrors barely dreamed of by older and more powerful things. Eventually, however, the Order of Reason could no longer function in its present state, and in the 1800s, with the blessing of Queen Victoria herself, a last convocation of the Order was held, and from it the Technocratic Union was born. Peeled away were the last vestiges of religious ties and rival empires. Left was the desire for power, wealth, and influence. The Gabrielites and craft masons were purged, expunged from the Order as if they had never existed, and this event, referred to as a lightning purge, and the precedents it set, would eventually result in both the virtual adepts and the Electrodyne engineers leaving to join the traditions. Unlike vampiric clans and werewolf tribes, the many different schools of magic and enlightened sciences often undergo extensive changes. Some become quaint and irrelevant dead ends, while others flourish for a time, yet eventually branching into further distinctions or merging with others. There are quite a number of disparates, schools of magic not belonging to the traditions, yet
Yes. Would.
the line is nowhere as blurred as between enlightened science and technomancy. Both the virtual adepts and the Society of Ether once belonged to the Union, sharing their vision, yet because of politics, and perhaps restrictions imposed upon them by the other conventions, they have embraced a way of thinking more in line with the traditions. This is a momentous thing, because the technocracy does not believe in magic. Even though what they do fundamentally alters reality in their favor, they will explain it with science. One can consider it technobabble if one wishes, but it is an immutable fact that a technocrat believes in the science they employ. Changing one's perception to allow for even the possibility of the existence of magic requires a tremendous feat of will. The technocracy is composed of 5 conventions, all working in tandem to control and guide humanity forward. These are called the Iteration X, the New World Order, the Progenitors, the Syndicate, and the Void Engineers. Iteration X are the mechanics of the Union. They believe in constant improvement through iterations and work hard to enhance both the equipment and the bodies of their operatives. They provide technological advancements and cybernetics outside the realm of most science fiction, and their mathematical precision is like clockwork. They provide soldiers and workers, and can at times be almost drone-like in their approach to a problem. Their spheres of influence are force, matter, and time. Perfection through practice is a common motto in this convention, and whether applied to military operations or the fine motor abilities of a cybernetic hand is irrelevant. The New World Order, as its name implies, are the shadowy rulers, the big brother of the modern world. Political lobbyists and experts rub shoulders with black suits, field operatives who travel the world ensuring that any encounters between reality deviants, their term for any supernatural creature, and the unenlightened is smoothed over. They are experts of altering perception as well, conducting indoctrination and reprogramming of individuals who may display dangerous signs of non-compliance with the consensus. Information is their specialty, and through their many iterations, these technocrats have gotten very, very good at it. Unsurprisingly, mind and correspondence, referred to as data by the technocracy, are their primary spheres. Progenitors are the medics and scientists of the Union. Also called evolutionists, these life and prime specialized technocrats seek to evolve and perfect the human race. This can of course be troublesome, and this convention has struggled with its own self-image, as many of humanity's darkest moments arose from ideas like superior genome or racial traits. Today they sternly remind themselves of the Hippocratic Oath, and as many progenitors have a past as medical practitioners, they take this seriously. They are sometimes considered mad scientists on par with Frankenstein, creating strange amalgams of animals, sometimes just to see if it can be done. The progenitors also supply the rest of the Union with vat-grown clones, soldiers in the war to protect humanity from the corrupting influence of the mystics. Money is the grease that makes the wheels turn, and the Syndicate embodies this way of thinking. Whenever the Union requires funding, it will come in the form of a discrete reallocation of funds from one of the countless shell companies operated by these technocrats. Entropy, mind, and primal utility, a monetary-focused application of the prime sphere, are theirs to wield, and theirs are the board meetings that determine the agenda of the Union. Theirs is the money that is slipped into a politician's sweaty palm as they ban the practice of organized religion in their city, or the yacht given as a bonus to corporate executives for the humane resettlement of the flora and fauna as a dam is built where a werewolf's cairn just happens to be located. The Void Engineers are the explorers of the technocracy, the pioneers who venture far into the umbral realm to combat threats to humanity and pave over their void so that they can never again impose their will upon us. This goal of sterilizing the realms beyond the gauntlet are hardline, intolerant, yet considering the horrors faced by these wanderers, who can really blame them? Dark and twisted spirits seek to manipulate and exploit humanity towards their own evil ends, even the werewolves know this, yet while they strive for balance, the Union wishes for control, so much better to ensure stability after all. They have mastered the spheres of correspondence, forces, and dimensional science, their word for the sphere of spirit, in their pursuit. Whenever the possibility of a non-corporeal reality deviant is on the table, the rest of the Union turn to these hardened space marines for their expertise. There is, of course, so much more one can say about the Technocratic Union, but I fear that we are running out of time for now. If this series of videos on Mage inspired you to try to play the game itself, the core rulebook for M20, the 20th anniversary edition of Mage, is available on Storyteller's Vault both as PDF and print on demand. Somewhat more urgently, however, is the Kickstarter for the Technocracy Reloaded, a new book specifically designed to bring the Technocratic Union into the 2020s. It's on its last couple of days at the time of this video's release, so there is still time to support it. There will be a link in the description. Now, before I thank my amazing patrons for their support, I would like to give you all a little update. Since last week, I have now hit my topmost Patreon goal, meaning I will be able to cut down some of my day job and focus more on my channel. I will also commence running a Chronicle set in my hometown, Stockholm, where patrons of Primogen tier or above will be able to play with me as a storyteller. I can't even begin to describe how excited I am about this, and honestly the amount of support and love I've gotten from all of you over these 10 months is just unbelievable. Thank you everyone so much for being there. I read all the comments, but lately I haven't been able to respond to them all. I'm honestly completely blown away, and it really hasn't sunk in yet. I will continue to do my best in providing you all with lore videos on the World of Darkness, and I will also be able to unveil my one on YouTube Giovanni Chronicles come June. I'm very much looking forward to hearing what the council thinks about that. Here's to at least another 10 months of content, because I don't know, I don't really know how, I can't really imagine my life right now without doing this. It really means a lot to me. The ancient snow, whose grand vision always guides my hand and whose dark patronage is a blessing of utmost brilliance, has been joined in the eternal game of chess that is the Jihad by Adam Daw, a powerful and mysterious antediluvian whose will I can feel pulling at the strings of my soul, guiding my hands as I write these words. Blessed be these two dark gods, their wisdom far beyond the scope of kindred and kind, and I prayed for their benevolence when the time of judgment descends upon us. Her Satanic Majesty Dani, the Methuselah mistress whose presence I have the fortune to bask in as she offers guidance, has likewise been bolstered. Maximilian S. Hardcastle, whose sudden ascendance to this state may have been at the price of his or someone else's eternal soul,
Wonder how much. We'll be right back. And me actually run some ads before. Yes.
You burned my soul again, crashed me within. I know I should have known. I burn your kingdoms at fault for what you made alone. And so I pray, clasp my hands together, hear me now. And hope someday, come whatever, I may fade away. I never die like I'll never bow to the reaper who takes your life. I'll never cry, although I try. Immortal sacrifice. How can you hear my words, preacher? Uncrucified. I'll never die. My chariot's flame is not tight as highways that I've weathered. I won't consume me. Can't you take me home? Live to see endless decay. Am I the reason? Godlike but known as a demon. I'll never disturb. You made me sin. My genesis, a revelation made. This world is pretend. Stop before the flames seventh day. Cannot be seen if I'm nothing but a machine and a copy. When there is nothing that you find in me, can I steal the sound of your heartbeat? Angel fell with no wings. Is it me? I can't think. What will you do when I bid you come? It's the chain on the point of destruction. I'm trying, but my eyes are blind, please. You're my creator, and told me you sense no trust shoulder. Allow me to see. I gave my trust to a lie. Breathe in me, give me life. My chariot. Oh, my chariot's flame is not.
A new quest is available in your codex.
Can't you take me home? To see endless decay. Am I the reason? Godlike but known as a demon. I'll never die.
Do you remember the old war, Operator? Ordis seems to have misplaced those memories.
Okay, let's see. I messed with my mic a little bit. Stream, whether it's better now. Okay. Yeah, it should be better now. Anyway, let's get Warframe. Once it shows up. I'll get myself some water and cheat shadows. I suppose I can play it already. Yeah. Communication. Summoned by Harm Ho. Let's begin. $30 to 40 minutes. Okay, well, that's not that long then. I'll need to figure out something else to do later.
Shadow, Father, Protector. I have made many mistakes, grave ones, but they may yet be reforged into lessons. Go to Venus. It's Valis. A new and terrible education awaits.
Interesting. No. Dude. And it interrupts me mid-air. I'm not actually sure what I'm supposed to do here. Okay. E.
Their battle will rage on in eternity unless you stop them, Shadow.
Okay. So where's the green one? Motherfucker. Now it's kind of like locked me into combat animation. Well, that's fun. Well, at least I got some good hits on it though. There we go. And well, I stopped it, I think. Oh. Hello, Stalker. Oh,
This is what we traveled back for.
oh, the proto frame.
Right off is your father? Very well. Let us show him what a mistake it was to choose Sirius.
How indeed. How can we both be here? Do you not recognize your own son, Sirius? He is wounded in body and soul. We are locked in eternal conflict by a force we can feel but not see, slaughtering each other over and over. We finally found you, alive. We retreat now and hide. Find us.
Interesting. I don't know what the fuck just happened, but I'm here for it. What the fuck is this shit? Hello.
You sense it, Shadow. They are both your son. Even though you hold Sirius here, in another place, Orion was held by you also. And now, they come for you from beyond this time. Time is a river, and they have learned to swim
Interesting.
upstream. They're from a doomed future where one always wins. Yet now, they've found you. We must stop their war. But you cannot do this alone. Too much is unknown. Too many forces are raised against you. You must seek help.
Did I know?
Not them. Not again. Calm, Shadow. This time, I agree. The dreamers can
Oh,
know. Nata can never know. She must always believe in a future.
well, who then? Just our dude? Or one of the other factions? Oh, we begin.
La 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 la. La. Ordis loves his new vocalizer module.
Shut the fuck up, Ordis. My name.
At last, a quiet night on the orbiter. Not even so much as a flickering sensor. Oh no! Not a chance! After what you put us through last time? My poor operator! Shoo!
I need to have them fuck off.
Helmeth hasn't been itself since the drifter climbed into its mouth. I find a cavat in there.
Yeah, bleh. I'm playing Paranoid.
Intruder! Intruder! Stalker is... Wait. Umbra? Umbra? Umbra, Ordis will... must go with you. You cannot betray the operator like this. I will not allow...
Silence.
Understood. Well, Ordis will just keep the operator
Oh.
distracted while you are gone. But do not expect a rescue.
Well, then we go.
Your companion understands the truth of this conflict, Shadow. You can be the one to save your sons. Let us begin by listening.
Let us do so.
The Corpus know much. Surely they have detected this anomaly in the Orb Valis. Intercept their data to locate both Sirius and Orion.
Capture enemy towers. Okay. We can do that. Got Delta. How about... But I go get another tower.
I know you are at war with yourself, Shadow. Your choice of a name was simple, from your beating heart. But the Void, our enemy, nursed and nurtured the unchosen name, forging a rival path, a second son. There is room in your heart for both. We must show them that.
Okay, I need to go to the other tower. Can I order that guy to stick to another one? This is mildly annoying.
These ships, the alloys are dated 20 years from now. Truly a doomed future. Their plans, however violent, however drastic, cannot be allowed to take shape.
Ouch. Well, we'll go up the win, so that's good. Kill remaining enemies, will do. No, I know that execute that one. Where else? More? Oh, there you are. And there we go. It should be done. Done here. So, the kid, I suppose. Oh. Yep. The larva.
You could not have known. Your dilemma is a fell comedy to the dweller in the void. I almost hear them laughing now.
Well, the void creature would.
Shadow, restrain those opportunistic mentors. Learn what you can. How your kind have been twisted. You must meet with Sirius and Orion, uninfluenced by future forces.
Create paradox.
I will create such an opportunity for us, Shadow. Umbra the Broken, you are here to help with one thing. Watch the child.
Looking. Well, that works, kinda. Brlp. And we proceed, I guess. Well, this one seemed like more of an asshole. Get him first. It's a kuva vessel. Kuva. Oh no, it's a spy mission.
Before you confront Vina, unveil her secrets. We must know what dangers her future holds. Whispers from the future we must never allow to pass. Whispers of a Cephalon Parvos. A plague.
Luckily this guy has auto page.
Shrouded in darkness. Orion alone. Always fighting Sirius. This witch. His partner.
Oh, fuck off.
You must understand, this future is doomed. The Kennel made sure of that.
Okay. And hello.
What? Oh, a fight? Do you not approve of your future daughter-in-law?
Shadow, you must only restrain this witch. Orion will come for you. This is inevitable.
Bonk. These guys can fuck off and not unfuck off. We're done here. Hunt complete. And we go back to Hanro. And Haru. Gung Ho. RP walk.
Speak. The witch is Orion is hunting the path here. Go once more. Adjust your weaponry if you see fit.
Ampros loadout. Yeah, I'll keep the Stalker's loadout. Umbra can use their shit. And we go off to the other guy. Capture.
The Yaiba is a relentless blade, a worthy foe. He must be sheathed or broken. Find him.
Will do. Huh? Unlock a jigaj. Oh, hi.
These mass-produced minions have clearly been cloned from a single master. I suggest you find the strongest among them.
Oh, defeat them. Well, there's... Well, most certainly...
I
That all?
know you're here. I've already sent the boy. My role in this eternal dance has come to an end.
Interesting.
I do not belong here. I welcome death at your hand. Make this a fitting finale.
Will do. Fucking fences. And then... Let's get that fucking turret offline. One more. For fuck's sake. Hello there.
I am the answer to the question you should not have asked.
Teleports behind you, nothing personal, kid. Very good. Oh.
Strike once, strike true, strike fatally.
Yeet, yeet, yeet. Okay.
I'm the last lesson you will ever receive.
Got him as well. I don't remember to use more of the abilities. Whatever. I don't know why it says the capture, I just knocked him the fuck out. Fuck you, Avengers. Worked for me. Now what? And what has gone on here while we were away?
Orion and Sirius are seeking your trail. They sense us. Conflict is imminent. Before they arrive, travel to Uranus Proxima, above me here. For there is something I must be certain of. Some way to stop this foul mockery of family that has led to us.
Umbra stays here. Is still here. Do then. Mockery.
Orion, Sirius. One a constellation, the other a bright light. Our infinite sentient eyes gazed upon them on our way to the new naked stars. Watched as they whispered by. We could have gone toward them. Perhaps it's time to gaze on what could have been.
Interesting.
Listen. The void. It has done this. An eternal conflict. Sacrifices needed to stop it. Just like my Nata did. For her children of Lua. The poison glow, brighter than a star. It may be here that you see something I could not. Touch it in all its impurity. Withstand its vacuous laughter. Wield it. Bring it to me.
Well, this is gonna be fun.
Do you not believe it's its promises, its lies.
Nope. I'll do not assassin. Yeah, it would be great if it didn't like auto-target me. There we go.
Shadow, bring the void spark. Hurry. The adult sons hasten toward the infant, and even Umbra cannot hold them for long. I've taken a terrible risk, but we need them together.
Well, this is gonna be interesting. Are we gonna go into the void? That's gonna be fascinating.
Now, Shadow, now!
Why does it give me a share hub?
You wonder how Natar hid the moon in the void? What it cost? I am done with tricks, Shadow. We're all here now.
And what do we do?
Sons of Shadow, hear me. I am Unhal, the great and terrible, sentient destroyer of worlds. This day, I spurn my legacy. I repudiate destruction. I failed my people. I failed my children, Era, Natar. I failed the Shadow, your father. I shall not fail in this. I, who once severed worlds, now offer my eye and hand. Peace. To you, void jester who watches our grief, I give my past, myself, in bargain to sever the eternal battle you began.
Okay, where am I? There is...
Dinner time! Did you forget it was your night to cook?
some fuckery about.
Come on now, before he gets fussy.
Thank you. Thank you, Smart Connect, it seems. Interesting.
I am Hun Hao, sentient architect of worlds. It's my honor to prepare a new home for you. I shall be happy to see you populate it.
What's for dinner? It is. It is something.
Do you think he'll like spicy or sweet?
Meat.
I wonder if his appetite will take after me or you. I love sweet. You love spicy.
Actually, let's change that.
I wonder if he'll be a vegetarian, like you. I don't know how you do it, Soren.
For fuck's sake.
My little Sirius could have a sweet tooth like Mama.
Does that work? Okay. Okay, well, one out of. This is just fucking stupid.
Meat or vegetarian?
What? I thought I used all of them. What did that say? Not liberally.
If he's anything like you, he'll love it spicy. And
The
me,
book.
well, I could never say no to sweets.
How spicy that thing.
I hope his spice tolerance is like yours.
So it is spicy and that thing. This was stupid and unnecessary.
Your mother was the better cook. Stay together.
An impossible future. Okay. I was hoping that there was more, but alas no. I could do. You know. I do in react. I wanted to look at this. Is gonna be was any. You find the where is it?
Hello, Info%, this is Anton, and
Oh, Anton. Petrov. Hello and welcome to Reacts with Digital TA. We're looking at Anton Petrov's video. We actually have a third eye and it's not metaphysical. Because this is a science guy, this is not like a occult guy. So,
Hello Info%, this is Anton, and today we're going to be discussing some really intriguing discoveries in regards to our eyes. Something that technically we do take for granted, but something that actually represents one of the most distinctive and one of the most complex organs in the entire animal kingdom. But also something that's extremely successful in terms of evolution.
Yeah, because it's been evolved many times, like in different ways.
Because a lot of different animals seem to possess eyes,
I remember
and
this.
Quite a lot of them use it for survival. And so in this video we're going to discuss this recent study that actually discovered something we've never known before, and specifically answers the question of why human eyes, or technically mammalian eyes, are so different from everyone else. But first, let's start with the somewhat unusual evolutionary argument that even Darwin could not answer. And that's because for centuries, the idea of eyes was even used as an argument against evolution. Mostly because it just seemed to be too
religious
perfect
people
to have happened by chance. And even Charles Darwin famously admitted that the idea of eye evolving naturally, or through natural selection, seemed kind of absurd and was very difficult to explain. However, in the last few decades, a lot of studies, including some of the major papers from the last few years, have finally pieced together the incredible journey of how pretty much most animals got their eyes. And it turns out that in terms of evolution, back in the days, our ancestors basically used to be a kind of a cyclops, or they essentially possessed just one eye in the middle. And that turns out to be extremely important in explaining why human eyes, or once again mammalian eyes, are just a little bit different from many other kingdoms. And so today we're going to take a look at this recent study and discuss some of the main discoveries in regards to the evolution of vision, but much more importantly, we're going to discuss the fact that, turns out, we do have a third eye inside of us. Not some kind of a metaphysical or symbolic eye, but instead a real one that technically still has the same function as it did 600 million years ago. And ironically, it's literally right here, right in the middle. And so let's discuss exactly what scientists...
Wait, could I have better vision if I made my nose translucent? That would be fucking epic.
...recently discovered, and well, in some sense, this might unofficially blow your mind and stuff. At least it blew my mind when I read it. But in a nutshell, this entire study explains the unusual properties of human eyes as a result of a temporary lifestyle change of an ancient mammalian ancestor 600 million years ago. But to understand the recent breakthroughs, we first have to discuss what scientists have already known for quite a long time. Or basically, we have to discuss the evolution of eyes in general and how we think all of this started. And as you probably know, the evolution of the eye is not a single event. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of evidence that complex eyes and the idea of vision very likely evolved completely independently at least 40, but possibly up to 65 times across different animal groups. In other words, this was such a successful mechanism that it basically evolved in completely different animals, resulting in completely different eyes. But
yeah, well, that of course being, since, well, sun powers everything, and visible light is abundant. That makes sense.
But despite this diversity, almost all eyes share the same basic genetic master control. This is actually a gene referred to as PAX6, a master regulator for eye and brain development. And in case you're wondering, it looks kind of like this. And so this is something that pretty much all organisms that contain eyes seem to have as well, suggesting that this is something that's extremely ancient and something that very likely evolved nearly 1 billion years ago. And for pretty much all organisms that evolved vision, it very likely all started in an extremely similar way. It started with simple light-sensitive proteins referred to as opsins. And this basically was a kind of an eye spot that could not actually see shapes and could not detect motion, but could tell the difference between light and dark. This is actually something that still exists in animals like planarians. And so pretty much most animals that have eyes very likely began as this. But then eventually, a lot of these flat patches of cells started to fall inwards and started to form a kind of a cup. And this was a massive upgrade because now it allowed animals to tell which direction light was coming from. So essentially it allowed for limited directional sensitivity. Once again, this is something that does exist in some of the more primitive worms. But it's really the next step that started to change everything. Here we had the pinhole eye. And so as the scope got deeper and deeper, the opening started to get smaller, and basically it started to act like a kind of a pinhole camera, which allowed for the first actual images to start forming, even though overall they were quite dim.
Yeah, and we still use, like, well, some artists use pinhole cameras, which use the same kind of science.
But as this cavity then started to fill with liquids, this is when things started to evolve very, very quickly, and the vision became better and better. And so basically the last step was the lens, some kind of a transparent protective layer, most likely involving some kind of a transparent skin, that eventually evolved into a lens that started to focus light. And though by itself this might seem like some kind of a very long process, according to various evolutionary models and computer simulations, in order to evolve from a simple eye patch to a much more complex eye with a lens, animals would not actually need more than 400,000 years. So in theory, this can be an extremely quick process, and seems to be so effective that it happened dozens of times and resulted in very similar eye structures. And so that's the general path for most animals that resulted in a variety of different eyes. And by the way, if you actually want to learn about the unusual eye shapes and some of the unusual eye properties animals contain, check out one of the previous videos in the description. But there's always been this one question in regards to the eye.
Yep, I'll have the original video linked in my video description.
Eyes that we have. Because compared to a lot of other animals, our eyes are actually a little bit different. And one of the best comparisons here is basically between our eyes and the eyes of an octopus. Or technically not just an octopus, but basically any invertebrate with complex eyes, including cuttlefish and squid.
Their eyes are
this is,
freaking.
of course, a classic example of convergent evolution. Both the eyes of a human and an octopus evolved a kind of a camera-type structure involving a lens, an iris, and a retina. But the internal wiring seems to be entirely different. Specifically because in humans and a lot of mammals, the eye is actually inverted, whereas octopuses have everted retina. Or just to rephrase this, in our eyes, the sensitive receptors that perceive the light seem to be located in the back of the eye, with the neurons connected to all of this being in front, whereas for the octopus, the cells are in front and the neurons are in the back. And because of this, human eye has what's known as a blind spot, where a lot of these neurons, or a lot of these nerve fibers, converge at a single point and form what's known as the optic nerve. And so because there's a kind of a hole inside the retina, this forms a blind spot. Octopuses and squid don't have any blind spots. Our eyes also differ in the way they seem to focus and use the lens. The human eye uses tiny muscles, referred to as ciliary muscles, to change the actual shape of the lens, whereas octopuses seem to focus very similar to a traditional camera lens and move the entire lens forward or backwards. And so in other words, even though the overall effect of vision seems to be the same, the structure is entirely different. And of course, on top of this, humans have a sophisticated system, usually involving at least 3 types of cone cells that allow us to see 3 different colors, whereas octopuses just have 1 photoreceptor. But they're sensitive to polarization of light, which we cannot see. And so here the obvious question was, okay, so why did our eyes evolve so differently? And why do vertebrate retina seem to have such a strange structure compared to everyone else? And well, that's basically the focus of this recent study on the evolution of vertebrate retina that explains most of this by looking back approximately 600 million years. Now, first in the study there's this incredible illustration that summarizes the main differences and main similarities between various eyes in various types of animals. So everything from insects to different types of worms to, of course, vertebrates. But turns out that our eyes, or vertebrate eyes, may have had a much stranger history. And so here scientists George Kafetzis and Dan Nilsson surveyed 36 major groups of living animals and discovered that the light-sensing cells seem to be always found in 2 places, either paired on the side of the head, kind of like I guess what we have, or sometimes in the middle of the head, so basically a kind of a middle eye. And well, apparently 600 million years ago, we kind of had this unusual worm-like ancestor that seems to have had both sets. In other words, it had the lateral eyes and the middle eye. It's obviously not entirely clear why this evolved, but it very likely served some kind of a purpose. But around this time, very likely because of various climatic changes, instead of being active feeders and very likely moving around, they eventually became stationary and, just like so many other worms, became filter feeders, basically burrowed into seabeds and remained more or less motionless. And because they were no longer moving around, the eyes on the side of their head, or the steering eyes, were no longer necessary. And just like it usually happens with animals that don't use something, they eventually lose it. This actually happens to a lot of different fish that, for example, live in complete darkness and eventually lose their eyes. But because of their lifestyle, they very likely still had to be able to tell time, or specifically tell when it was daytime. And so they needed to have some kind of a simple way of detecting light. And so their light-sensing cells in the middle of the head seem to have remained, and eventually developed into some kind of a single midline eye that you can kind of see right here. And so, as I mentioned in the beginning, 600 million years ago, our ancestors were possibly a cyclops, a tiny, motionless worm cyclops. But then climate changed again, and our ancestors decided to change their lifestyle once again. And so they very likely returned to swimming, which means that they needed to steer again, and which means that they needed to have these lateral eyes that were so successful before. And the evolution solved this by having that single midline eye grow cups on each side, with these cups eventually moving to the sides of the head and becoming the pairs of eyes that most vertebrates have today. So basically this was the beginning of some of the first fish, with that fish eventually making their way to the terrestrial surface and evolving into lizards.
It says pineal. Does that have anything to do with the pineal gland? Maybe we'll find out.
Which then evolved into mammals and eventually us. And overall this kind of explains why the vertebrate eyes are so different from invertebrate eyes, once again including octopus and most of the insects. And so our eyes are essentially a repurposed version of that central midline eye. Okay, cool, that's I guess an interesting proposition and an interesting hypothesis. But first of all, is there any proof? And second of all, why did I actually mention in the beginning that we still seem to possess a third eye? Well, that's because this particular discovery actually explains so much about one specific gland right here in the middle. The pineal gland.
Okay,
it's
so that
this
it is
super tiny red spot you see right there in the middle. And based on a lot of neuroscience studies, we know that in humans, the pineal gland, or this unusual pinecone-shaped structure, seems to produce melatonin and regulate our sleep. In other words, it's critical in regulating biological rhythms. But we also know that it's somewhat sensitive to light, as in it usually receives signals from our two eyes right here via hypothalamus. And so when it's dark, melatonin production increases, which makes you sleepy, but when it's light, the production is stopped, and this allows you to stay alert. And
yeah, that's why I use like a sleeping mask, because I'm a nocturnal animal, and I sleep during the day. And maybe I will change that once I get a job again.
That's of course the natural of the so-called circadian rhythm. But we know that obviously other vertebrates have this as well. And intriguingly, in many other vertebrates like certain lizards, frogs, and of course fish, the pineal gland is actually connected to a visible third eye on top of their head. This is known as the parietal eye. Here's for example one in a bullfrog, and here's one inside a lizard. And this is not just a dot, this is an actual eye with a cornea,
I wonder
a
if
lens,
geckos
and a
have that.
retina. And even though our pineal gland is technically buried inside the skull and does not see the light directly, it still contains exactly the same structure and same cells, referred to as pinealocytes. These are actually found in the retinas of our eyes as well. Or just to rephrase this, if you were to shine the light on the pineal gland somehow, you would probably sense it. And so, in a very real sense, it's actually not wrong to say that we have three eyes, and we do have a third eye right here in the middle.
Okay. I hope Elon Musk doesn't see this, because he would like have his cronies at the brain implant factory do something about it.
Although we don't really see much with it anymore, unlike these other vertebrates like frogs and fish. But more importantly, this confirms this unusual origin story and confirms that the origin of vertebrate vision is still inside of us even today. As a matter of fact, it confirms that our eyes very likely started from that central eye in the middle, sometimes 600 million years ago. But in terms of the evolution of vision, one question still remains. Why do so many animals contain eyes? Or basically, why is vision so successful? And today it's believed that it was really because of the Cambrian explosion approximately 540 million years ago. This is based on the idea known as the light switch hypothesis that suggests that once some of the first complex eyes appeared, specifically in animals like trilobites, it basically sparked a kind of an evolutionary arms race. And this is because vision turned animals into active hunters and not just passive feeders. And that means that prey also had to evolve in order to survive. And so here we had a kind of a burst of evolutionary innovation that eventually led to massive diversity of life and massive diversity of eyes we see today. But without this first evolution of eyes, the complexity we see inside of us would never exist. So the eye evolution was actually extremely important. But once again, because of the way our eyes evolved, and because they were kind of a split off from the central eye, they essentially contain a kind of an evolutionary baggage. So basically it explains why our eyes seem to be built backwards and upside down compared to eyes of octopuses. But despite this backward design, our eyes seem to be still much more efficient and even seem to have much higher metabolism, which actually helps us see incredible detail that's almost impossible for many different invertebrates.
Well, then there's like the mantis shrimp, which can see like a lot of more colors than us.
In other words, despite this backward design, our eyes are still much more efficient. But overall, these types of studies take us just a little bit closer to helping us understand how complex life evolved and how our brains and our senses seem to be wired together. And so this basically shows us that evolution doesn't always find a perfect path, but sometimes just takes these unusual shortcuts or even repurposes something that we already have in order to create something unusual and something spectacular. But at least for now, that's all I wanted to mention. Once we discover something else, we'll come back and talk more about this in some of the future videos. Until then, thank you for watching, subscribe, come back tomorrow to learn something else, support the channel on Patreon where you can find additional videos without any ads and can DM me directly, or by joining a channel membership that grants you early access. You can also support this channel by buying the Wonderful Person t-shirt in the description below. Stay wonderful, I'll see you tomorrow, and as always, bye bye.
Yeah, I will be linking that. Well, actually, I'll link it in. But I'll stop the recording here for the YouTube video. I think I'll upload this as React. There we go. What should I look at next? I could also go and just chat with people, but I wanna react to another science for video first. By the way, apparently I was asking about the Apple Eye. Yeah. There. There is a gecko VTuber that I'm gonna tell about that too. That should be interesting. I have a bunch of videos here, but I've watched this already. The other day. Those are for minutes ago, scientists find backdoor in thousands of headphones. Okay, this is a
Hackers are
hacking. Let's see. This is a new video, so I'm not gonna re-upload this level.
Hackers are hacking headphones, and you may be thinking, what? Is that even possible? And that's what I thought when I first heard this topic. The idea of hacking a pair of headphones, how could you do that? Why would you do that? And what is the worst thing that can happen? This story picked up some steam when an article about a week ago came up that says Apple fixes Beats Studio Buds flaw that allows hackers to spy on conversations. When I saw that, I was like, okay, like maybe there's like an RCE bug in like this one model of headphones, you know, okay, not a big deal. But the rabbit hole on this goes really deep, and I'm honestly shocked more people aren't talking about it now or weren't back when this happened, which wasn't recently. For context, right? Apple makes these things called Beats Studio Buds. I don't know when the acquisition acquired like Beats, but basically Beats by Dre has these Studio Buds that are a Bluetooth headphone. It is a wireless headphone that you connect to a device. Pretty straightforward. Now the problem, like any other protocol, right? It can have vulnerabilities that could allow somebody to get maybe code execution or maybe deny or spy on the headphones, which on its own in a single case is a big deal, but not that surprising. That can happen. But what's crazy is, again, this came out last week. If you dive deep into the actual sources of this article, they reference another article that came out over a year ago. Bluetooth flaws could let hackers spy through your microphone. So
Wait, so what the fuck is this, like every model until it's updated? Because that's big.
this article is just the publicity on Apple patching and fixing their version of the bug. But this is research that came out a year ago from this research organization, ERNW, the Insinuator, and they published this vulnerability in not just one pair of headphones or two, an entire chipset that multiple manufacturers depend on to produce headphones that I still can't believe didn't get talked about more. Like, I'm just now hearing about this. As you can see, right, the list of headphones
are mine there.
Is large to include some pretty big players like some Bose headphones, some Jabra headphones, some JBL headphones, Marshall, a lot of those.
Well, I used to have pair of these, but I lost them. So I'm good, I suppose. I do have a VFC 500, I think. It might be a different one.
Sony, a lot of Sony. The list goes on. What is the vulnerability? So there's this company called Aroha. I'm just going to say Aroha. That's probably wrong. I'll also speak a little bit of Spanish with Aroha. Aroha SoCs, system on a chips, which basically are the chip that is doing the Bluetooth, right? It is a controller that is meant to do the communication to speak Bluetooth. It is a Bluetooth system on a chip. Now, when you are a manufacturer or somebody that wants to develop with these systems on a chip, what's going to happen is the company is going to give you not only the chip, but the SDK, the software development kit that allows you to write your code on top, right? It wouldn't make sense for them to hand you like the chip and a data sheet. They have to give you something else to work with, right? They have to give you the actual code that allows you to talk to the chip, to give you
the pinout and whatnot, obviously, to integrate it into your system.
Abstractions to actually use it. Here's the problem. That SDK, the one that all these headphone vendors depended on.
Well, okay, that's hardware. This is software. But still, the functions. How do you connect to the device and whatnot?
Has these three vulnerabilities. Missing authentication for YAT services. I'm not going to say it again, but just like missing authentication for Bluetooth, BR, EDR, and critical capabilities of a custom protocol. This is where it gets in, like, again, the world of embedded devices. I've made videos on this. I have another video coming out on like just random Temu embedded shit. The world of embedded devices never ceases to amaze me in how they are somehow unable to just have basic software development lifecycle practices to like disable bad features going out to the public, okay? And I'm not trying to shit on any companies, I'm really not, but like the stakes are so high, not in like the headphone space, but in like the IoT, OT space. Different video, different conversation, but still, what is vulnerability? Okay, so the research started when this organization was doing research on this thing called the Auracast Transmitter PC configuration tool, which
So that's like... Auracast
is a USB traffic tool, right? Literally, it is a tool that
that's going to be a problem.
One of these chips, an application that uses an Aura chip over USB. So, like on its own, you're like, okay, it's USB. Who cares?
No,
I
care.
This same protocol over USB that can be used to configure the device is also accessible over Bluetooth transport. Bluetooth, by the way, has two kind of like transport modes, GIAT and RFCOM. I'm not like a huge Bluetooth expert, but I know these are like the two main transport channels that exist for Bluetooth, and this protocol is accessible over Bluetooth. Also, it's accessible without authentication. If you're a developer, one of the easiest ways to stay ahead of vulnerabilities in your code base is knowing where and why your code breaks in the the first place. And that's why today's video is sponsored by Sentry. Sentry is an easy to use drop-in application monitoring solution that gives you visibility into where your code breaks and why it breaks. An application monitoring software considered not bad by millions of developers, me being one of them. The reason I like Sentry, by the way, guys,
like
is it is so easy to use. Like, it literally, all you have to do is make a new project. You click on the kind of project you have. I have a Django backend, I know, sue me. And then Sentry gives you the exact commands and like 5 lines of code it takes to actually implement this SDK.
Yeah, but of course you need to trust it
into your project. From there, you get a feed of issues that are happening in your code base. One that I found that was pretty useful for us actually was in the Low-Level Academy backend, we allow you to submit projects to our project grader, and it will automatically pull them off of GitHub. It'll grade them and then use that to give you a grade based on the project you're currently doing. And so we had an issue with one person who they submitted their project to the runner, and we actually weren't handling if GitHub projects were private gracefully, basically because it said that there was no project found at this URL. That was throwing an error in Python. It was raising an exception, and then Sentry picked it up. So now we went back, we fixed this issue, and now we more gracefully handle these errors. Again, things like this you don't really think about are the issues that grow and grow and grow and literally for free. And Sentry supports a ton of these. And this monitoring we put into the code base and found this literally for free. And Sentry supports a ton of different frameworks for both front end and back end. If you have a Next.js app, a React app, something running in just raw Node.js, maybe it's PHP or Laravel, any of these integrate in like 5 lines of code to Sentry. And guys, the best part is for a small team of 1, it's literally free to use. You can get up to 10 custom dashboards, alerts and email notifications, and error monitoring.
Maybe I'll check this out for my project.
Literally all you have to do is copy and paste this piece of code into your code base. I changed the URL for privacy reasons. Every time your program throws an exception or has some kind of error that you choose to log, this will throw that error into Sentry so your team has access to that dashboard so they can see what's going on in your code base before the bugs get too big and become vulnerabilities. Go to this link right now and you can do Sentry for free, integrate it to your project and see what errors Sentry picks up in your code base and find those bugs before they become vulnerabilities. Thank you for sponsoring the video, Sentry. Let's get back to it. Now, a simple protocol with some simple lack of authentication. What could be so incredibly wrong with
USB.
that? Well, if you read the functionality of the race protocol, because mind you, it is a configuration tool, you are able to, over the air, within the range of a Bluetooth device, you're able to read the flash of the device, read the RAM of the device, and oh, mind you, write the RAM of the device.
There
what
it
you
is.
can do is use this to read the RAM to get the current state of memory, to know kind of how the stack is set up, where all the different functions are, and you can just conveniently insert your own piece of shellcode and then inject one of the link registers or something to point back to your shellcode and hook the stack or whatever to get code execution on these headphones. Okay, so I was doing a little more research. I kept reading their write-up, and eventually they linked to a toolkit that they wrote that's called the Race Toolkit. So again, this is literally just a Python script that's able to interface over a, I think it's a Raspberry Pi Pico or Raspberry Pico to act as a Bluetooth interface to talk to one of these headphones and do something. Maybe it's on a Raspberry Pico. Let's see here. Sorry, it depends on you specifying a USB device or some kind of a CI, a host control interface to a Bluetooth device to talk to it. But what they very quietly don't talk about in this report, which I don't know why, because it's pretty badass, is this FOTA feature that they wrote in their toolkit. Firmware over the air. This command performs a firmware over the air, where is it? A firmware over the air firmware update. We re-implemented the photo process and have observed it during an update on our devices. Obviously, don't use this if you don't know what you're doing, because if you send it firmware that is malformed and does not boot, it will brick your headphones.
Yeah.
But what does this mean? The ability for you to be able to push a firmware image over the air onto a device you also can wirelessly get remote code execution on means that this is a wormable RCE, meaning that if I have a piece of malware that I can shoot over the air, and in the malware is code to do other photo updates, it can inject itself into other headphones as people walk around. How did this not get more attention? This is insane. And what makes it even crazier is if you consider the average person, their tendency to update the firmware on their devices, and like the amount
or the
of
lack
devices
thereof
we're talking about here. And again, this is just the ones that these people, these researchers went out and were like, oh, okay, this chipset is in this device and it uses this SDK, so it is vulnerable. There are probably other devices that are also vulnerable that no one is talking about, right? But again, you could write, I'm not saying to do this, I'm saying from like a defense standpoint, like literally this could be bad. You could write a wormable RCE that like targets this version, and in that malware, it knows to shoot other malware, other headphones, and there's just a network of headphones. Oh, I guess part of the thing you should want to know is like, what do you do if you get code execution on these headphones? Well, these headphones, right, they're just a Bluetooth interface, and Bluetooth connected devices are actually very privileged in a phone. Well, how you can't just pair an arbitrary piece of headphone to an arbitrary piece of phone. If you were to do, for example, dump RAM command, let's see if I can find it, RAM. Yeah, if you want to read all the RAM from the device, you can dump the Bluetooth link table, which has the cryptographic keys that headphone is using to authenticate with the phone, and then you can pull those keys down and impersonate those headphones, and then suddenly you can eavesdrop on calls. You can submit any kind of command that a hands-free device could do on the phone. You could read their contacts, all of that stuff, just because the headphone has a bug. So by the way, this applies to not only a Bluetooth Classic.
Yeah, but you will have to have allowed the earbuds first to access your contacts. This is a new-ish security thing on Android. But to be fair, most people just click yes on everything. So yeah, there's not
The normal like paired and authenticated Bluetooth, but also Bluetooth LE, Bluetooth LO Energy, which is more of like the pub sub, like simpler version of Bluetooth. So again, like this is the kind of bug, by the way, when people are like, oh, is Black Hat dangerous? Should I bring a burner phone? It's like, no, actually, like the Black Hat and DEF CON SOC, the networks around them, like as long as you're not like using an unpatched laptop and going to DEF CON and Black Hat and connecting to all of the Wi-Fi networks, generally you're safe, right? No one is throwing like proximal iPhone iOS 0 day at you unless you're like a government official or a journalist, okay? But these kinds of bugs that are really not that patchable, they're wormable, and they're wireless, and no one really cares about them because they're headphones, are like the ones that like you may actually see some nonsense going on at a con like this. I wanted to talk about this, just bonkers to me that we haven't heard more about this. And I guess we kind of did a year ago. Oh, part of the reason you may be wondering, like, why did it take so long for them to reveal this or to disclose this? So if you go to the actual, the timeline of disclosure, they emailed Aurora, whatever, March 25th, 2025. They did not get an email back from them until May of 2025, so 2 months later, and then there was no confirmation of an SDK update with a fix until June, and then they were waiting for a couple more bugs to get fixed before they went full disclosure. But just interesting that like it took a very
that's why I thought I've heard of this, because I watched, well, I was not at 39CT3, but I saw the presentation.
long time. So December is when this research was published at 39C3, and then now it's getting a lot more heat because Apple finally pushed out an update for their version of the headphones that were also vulnerable. Again, this should have more attention. I'm not sure why it doesn't. Anyway, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Love you. Oh, and by the way, if you use Sentry right now, you get $100 of free credits. That's 100 USD of credits. Go try it out. Okay, goodbye.
I don't have a project right now that I would need it for. That's it. I think it's I'm considering going out for a drink, but problem is it might rain. Probably gonna. Hopping onto this. But let me raid out. For YouTube.